This week on Only in America, a chilly new year for thousands of Salvadorans as the White House ends their protections. And I'm in Arizona, where I talked with a business leader about NAFTA, and he told me the loss of the Dreamers would send shockwaves through the state's booming economy.
If you had to sum it up, should be one word: welcome to those who want to come here, work hard, play by the rules, and contribute to the American society and to our economy.
From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Ali Noorani. Welcome to this week's Only in America. People often ask me, so why do you work on immigration? Well, I tell them, there are few issues that capture the public's attention so clearly and have such an impact on people's lives. Now is one of those times, because the Trump administration has taken an action that will change hundreds of thousands of lives. The White House decision to end temporary protected status for more than 260,000 Salvadorans is incredibly disappointing. Most of them have lived in the U.S. since 2001, when a massive earthquake rocked El Salvador. Over the past 17 years, they have settled into the U.S. while helping their families back home survive. They have a high labor participation rate, and their remittances account for almost 1/5 of El Salvador's gross domestic product. But let's be clear, expelling TPS recipients from America isn't bad for El Salvador. It is actually really bad for Americans. For example, as reported by the USA Today, Salvadorans in particular contribute significantly to the construction industries of hurricane-damaged Texas and Florida. There's no rebuilding Houston without a Salvadoran construction workforce. Salvadoran TPS recipients have been paying taxes, working jobs, and raising families for 17 years. This decision will devastate the local economies they have contributed to. And you know what? The kicker is that the State Department currently has a travel warning in effect for El Salvador, citing widespread gang violence and one of the highest homicide levels in the world. Let me put this just a bit differently. In 18 months, the administration is going to expel 260,000 Salvadorans, many of whom have U.S. citizen children, to a country the administration says is unsafe to visit. This is outrageous. Congress has an economic and a moral responsibility to legislate a permanent solution that allows current TPS holders to contribute fully without fear of expulsion. In a chilling January, this is a chilly development. Speaking of the weather, I needed a segue. Newsweek reported that the number of international tourists visiting the U.S. dropped by nearly 4% in the first half of 2017, compared with the same period the previous year. This is significant, given that in 2016, the U.S. travel and tourism industry generated more than $1.5 trillion in economic output, supporting 7.6 million jobs. Tourism insiders are calling this the, quote, Trump slump. I'm going to just call it a bad deal for the American worker and their family. Now, let's turn to efforts to pass a legislative solution for DACA recipients. Last week, the Trump administration laid out what they wanted on border enforcement priorities in return for a DACA solution. The administration's 10-year price tag of $33 billion includes the following: $18 billion for fencing and other structures, $8 billion for additional personnel, $5 billion for technology, and $1 billion for additional access roads. That's a lot of billions that Mexico ain't paying for. Of course, the administration will continue to insist on measures limiting legal immigration as DACA negotiations continue. Now, if you don't think this is all a Stephen Miller poison pill to torpedo DACA negotiations, listen to a CNN interview with Jake Tapper.
Not a lot of hours of coverage on this TV talking about the working class construction workers who've lost their jobs to foreign labor. There's not a lot of coverage on this TV about the people getting slaughtered in sanctuary cities. You don't do a lot of human interest stories about immigrant communities under siege from MS-13.
The only policy points he raised in 12 minutes were about immigration. When you look at the administration's proposal itself, you realize a wall does nothing to address the real problems on the border. For example, Customs and Border Protection are unable to hang on to the staff they have, much less fill current openings. And more money is needed to secure ports of entry, which is where the majority of drugs, guns, and money are smuggled. But the public will understand this negotiation in the way the front page of Sunday's Arizona Republic put it, quote, DACA versus the wall. One thing I don't think the administration has realized, though, if policymakers fail to reach a deal, in essence snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and stories of the administration deporting DACA recipients pick up, Trump will be to blame. On the other hand, as I wrote in the USA Today, by signing into law bipartisan immigration reforms, President Trump would achieve what neither of his predecessors could. Yes, it's true. Trump could be better than Bush and Obama on immigration, if he's smart about it. 3 things to watch as we close in on the next deadline for DACA. 1, will Senators Lankford and Tillis stay in the tent? If they are part of a bipartisan legislative proposal, our odds for success increase dramatically. 2, can Schumer and Pelosi thread the needle? The administration's $33 billion border demand is an overreach if Democrats stick to the policy without getting stuck in the far-left politics. And 3rd, are Speaker Ryan and Leader McConnell serious about a solution? At some point, Paul Ryan will have to put his thumb on the scale and call the question. And if Mitch McConnell really wants to address the issue, he needs to be serious about a budget-oriented solution. In the end, finding a reasonable solution on the question of dreamers will go a long way to demonstrating that America can be a nation of laws and a nation of grace. Stay warm, stay classy. I'm Ali Noorani.
Support for the National Immigration Forum comes from the James Irvine Foundation, expanding opportunity for the people of California, and from the Carnegie Corporation of New York, established in 1911 by Andrew Carnegie to promote the advancement and diffusion of knowledge and understanding.
This is Only in America. I'm Ali Noorani. From frozen DC to sunny Arizona, where I met up with Glenn Hammer, the president and CEO of the state's Chamber of Commerce. Unemployment in Arizona is reaching a 10-year low, and Hammer warned of the dangers to the economy of ending DACA protections for some 30,000 dreamers in Arizona.
At the Chamber, we're the party of business. We build coalitions where we can find them. Our job is to make Arizona the most competitive state in the country. And we want, obviously, the United States to be the most competitive country in the world. And while we spend a lot of our time on state issues, we also spend time on critical federal issues. And 2 of the top issues for the 2018 Arizona Chamber's business agenda are the modernization of NAFTA and finding a solution so that the dreamers, the 30,000 plus dreamers in the state of Arizona, could have the security they need to continue to be productive members of Arizona and American society. And that's one of the areas where it's been my great fortune, Ali, to get to know you and to follow your leadership.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And it's interesting because, for example, I was in Texas. I was in Austin a few months back, and I did a conversation with Eddie Aldretti, who is a senior vice president of IBC Bank, and we had a very similar discussion in Texas about the importance of immigration and NAFTA to the state of Texas, and it's interesting because it plays out very similarly here in Arizona. So give a sense of kind of what are the details here underneath those 2 big topics?
On NAFTA, we just had our big legislative forecast luncheon, 1,200 people, and the governor broke major news. We're going to have something that will, I believe, contribute over 15, 16, maybe even 17,000 jobs here in the Mesa Gateway. That's the greater Phoenix area. And what it's going to be doing basically is expediting cargo processing. We have established, Governor Doug Ducey and the Governor of Sonora, Governor Pavlovich, have established what we believe is a model relationship between 2 governors. And why this is so important to Arizona is when it comes to exports, Mexico times 4 is our top export partner. 40% of our exports go to Mexico, which, by the way, I believe is the same percentage as Texas. Now, I will acknowledge Texas, few more exports than Arizona, but in terms of the effects on the economy, it's very significant. And what NAFTA has meant for the state of Arizona is we're now the 14th largest state. We just topped 7 million. We're a larger state than Massachusetts with Boston. We just passed Massachusetts. Most people don't know that. Fastest growing county in America is Maricopa County. Our unemployment rate just hit a 10-year low. Trade has been a big part of that. The tourism economy in the state, 200,000 jobs in Arizona rely on tourism. Our friends from Mexico spend over $7.5 million every day staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, shopping in our stores. It's a huge part of our economy. Long-winded way of saying, if NAFTA were obliterated, we would feel the ill effects immediately. You flip it, if we modernize it for things like digital goods and take advantage of this recent great announcement that Governor Ducey just made on Skybridge, our economy will move forward even more aggressively. The choice is so easy. So our job is to make sure that we don't do something when it comes to NAFTA that we'll all regret.
And when you tie that, I remember what the governor said is that 100,000 jobs in Arizona are tied to NAFTA.
Yes.
So when you look at NAFTA, how do you connect that to the immigration debate? Because it's a combination, I would say, of tone, but just as importantly, of workforce.
Yeah, great question. And I do see them connected. And I would argue the most articulate champion, at least on the I'd say, no, I'm not going to qualify it. On the Republican or Democratic side, the most articulate champion for the need to get the Dreamer policy right and to get NAFTA modernization right is our junior senator, Senator Jeff Flake. In his book, Conscience of a Conservative, I would encourage everyone to read Chapter 4, which is on trade. It's the best explanation of trade that I've seen in a long time. Milton Friedman, if he were alive, would be very pleased. How I connect these is, look, we're a chamber of commerce. We want to see it's freedom. We want to see good people and good goods move freely between borders, because when we have those conditions, the United States is going to win. We are the world's greatest country. We are the place where people, I don't care what country you're from, people want to come and move here. And we want to attract the best and brightest and hardest working people on the planet to the state. I will have to make a note here. I am married to an immigrant. I'm
sorry, that's a conflict of interest.
So if that disqualifies me, she came over from Israel with her family. And I ought to say the amount, her father-in-law, my wife Tali, is just a wonderful person, one of the smartest people, maybe the smartest person I've ever met. Her family, her parents have contributed quite a bit to this country. They're standard immigrant story. They've come over, they've worked hard. Her dad's created a lot of jobs. He's a developer in California, but what can you do?
It's okay. Yeah.
Maybe one day Arizona. And the love for the United States of America is something that I get a little bit emotional about. When I spend 4th of July with them or Thanksgiving, the love that they have for this country, for me, it sort of replenishes my spirit. I've been here, depending on how you count it, 3 or so generations. There's nothing better than spending a major American holiday with someone who came from somewhere else and is now an American citizen. It's something special.
And it's the story of your family is replicated across the country. And the amazing, oftentimes people ask, well, it must be hard working on immigration these days. And I have to say it's probably never been more exciting because more people than ever are paying attention. They're realizing that the story you just shared is a story of their extended family.
Well, and if I also say just on this isn't just, obviously the family is part of it, but, and I've said this a lot of times, one of the greatest advantages that the United States of America has is the fact that we can attract talent and hardworking people to our country. And if you want to grow an economy, and that's what a Chamber of Commerce wants to do, it's so much easier if you have good immigration policy. If you have immigration policy that, if you had to sum it up, should be one word: welcome to those who want to come here, work hard, play by the rules, and contribute to the American society and to our economy.
So let's talk a little bit about Arizona's economy and how it's linked to immigration. You had mentioned that the state's unemployment rate is reaching a 10-year low. I mean, I remember when I first started coming to Arizona as part of this work in 2009, it was about 10 years ago, and the labor market was so incredibly tight. Then you had SB 1070, then you had efforts to reform the system, now we have the current administration. How is this playing out for the Arizona economy writ large, but then let's just say a specific industry like construction or care for the elderly community?
Well, you've identified construction, care for the elderly community, our hospitality industry. Yep. These are all areas where workers are desperately needed. We simply can't fill those jobs without help from workers who are either here under DACA status or are wishing to come here. And one of the things I think is important to mention, it's across the spectrum. So we have, we talked a lot today at our legislative forecast luncheon about that Arizona is becoming really a technology center. Right. Certainly in areas like driverless cars and things like that. I mean, companies are flocking here, workers are flocking here. But we hear from a lot of our companies. Intel has over 10,000 employees here. We hear from a lot of our companies, we need an H-1B program that has enough slots. And we know for the last many years, those slots go very quickly, and the demand for those slots far exceeds supply. So this is across the spectrum. And again, that's why wouldn't you want an immigration policy that encourages all productive human beings that want to come here, work hard, play by our rules to contribute to society. We've got great universities here. We want to see a policy where you're stapling a green card to those that are coming to our universities and certainly receiving degrees in high demand areas. Why educate good people and then not provide an avenue for them to remain in the state?
So March 5th is potentially the day where the DACA program comes to an end. In Arizona, I think you mentioned there are 30,000 DACA recipients who are currently contributing and paying taxes, working in important jobs. Describe to me the urgency of the situation around DACA for the state of Arizona and your economy.
Well, simply put, this is the most urgent federal priority. We do not want a situation where 30,000 people, most of whom are gainfully employed in Arizona companies, get pulled out of the workforce. I mean, think about the disruption that will cause. It's not cheap to train good people. So all of these positions could conceivably need to be filled by someone without the experience and in a very, very tight labor market. So what could that mean? And I think this is really important for people to understand. When you have bad immigration and policy, it's not just affecting the good people that want to work hard, it affects the whole ecosystem. We've got examples because of the hurdles in some of the immigration visa programs, like for agriculture. There are examples of American farms, including those in Arizona, basically plowing over their land and moving to Mexico. So it's not just immigrants and those workers who suffer, it's the entire ecosystem. It's the managers, it's the pizza parlor, the whole ecosystem. So, one of the interesting stats, and I think this is accurate, I believe every single major city, when you take a look at all the cities that are growing, like Phoenix, 5th largest city now, they all have very healthy immigration population growth. Yep. You pull that away and you are going to hurt the economy in a significant way.
So I don't know if you know this, but I grew up in Salinas, California. And I mean, I have friends that I grew up with, they still split their year between Salinas and Yuma. And, they talk about struggling to find a labor force in Yuma, where for every farm worker job, 3 jobs are created upstream or downstream that are held by native-born Americans. So I think the way you put it in terms of that ecosystem is it's incredibly important. Yeah, whether it's Yuma or Phoenix.
Whether it's Yuma or Phoenix. And, and I think that's, as we're having this conversation, I think this is why when you take a look at polls, you have very, very strong bipartisan majorities that want a solution across the board in terms of our immigration proposals. But when it comes to dreamers, those numbers are just off the charts.
Well, as you know, the name of this podcast is Only in America. So my closing question, if you will, that I'm posing to folks is to finish this sentence. Only in America, ...
Only in America do you have the full potential to realize your God-given talents. And only in America, when we have our policies moving in the right direction, do you have the opportunity to participate in a society that could regenerate, reinvent itself, and continue to lead the world and be a source of good and inspiration for all the citizens on Earth.
Thank you very much. And not just thank you for everything that you do, but we've really come to appreciate and respect the entire team at the Chamber, your membership, your board, and we'll eventually solve this problem, but we're really going to enjoy working with you along the way.
Well, I appreciate your leadership, and we're gonna. 2018 is going to be the year that something very important happens in immigration, and Ali, in large part, that's going to be because of your work. Yeah. And all the work that you've done in the past years to get us to this point.
Thank you. As long as I'm in Phoenix in January, it's always going to be okay.
And I just want to say you're always welcome to be with us at the Chamber and to be in our state. It's our privilege to have you with us here today in Arizona.
Thank you. Thank you. Glenn Hammer is the president of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce. There's more about Glenn at our website, immigrationforum.org. And while you're there, if you haven't already, subscribe to Only in America. Our podcast is produced by the staff of the National Immigration Forum, with special thanks to Emily Chow, Megan Wetmore, and executive producer Kathleen Farrell. I'm Ali Noorani with Only in America. See you next week.